Hey, Brain Damage! What's up, it's a culture detective here investigating your favorite albums. And today I'm going to be doing an album review on the new Sprain album, The Lamp as Effigy. So, Sprain is a Los Angeles-based noise rock band, and this is their second album, The Lamp as Effigy. A few years ago, they actually released the album as Lost Through Collision, I believe in the year 2021. And I remember reviewing it in a mini album review video where I talk about how essentially it's kind of disappointing. A lot of the tracks feel very derivative. They're kind of safe. There's nothing all that fancy about it. It's basically bread and butter noise rock, and there's just nothing all that interesting going on, despite the fact that noise rock is literally one of my favorite genres ever. So, seeing that they have released their new album and not having listened to any of the singles, I wasn't really looking forward to the release of this album like at all. But somehow it climbed the charts of Rate Your Music, and now I have to review it. So, yeah, like as Lost Through Collision, I'm actually not a big fan of this album at first. I just thought that this album is like a Daughters ripoff. I really enjoyed Daughters, You Won't Get What You Want, and also their self-titled album. And The Lamb as Effigy just feels like a less interesting, a less artistic, and a less structured album. That is, You Won't Get What You Want, which makes it not as enjoyable. But the more I listen to it, the more I listen to it in a different way. I guess in a lot of ways, Daughter's music is very different from Sprain because Daughter's music is way scarier, way more gothy, and it tries to be catchy. But Sprain's music, on the other hand, is so much more theatrical, so much more cinematic. It's not supposed to be catchy at all. In fact, none of the tracks here I can say are remotely catchy. They're all sonic mayhem, and that's pretty much it. But that in and of itself makes this album a lot more interesting than it seems because it is so much more of an experience because of that. Like the album opener, Man Proposes, God Disposes. We have some really raw and unhinged strings in the intro, and automatically reminds me of Lingua Ignota. For some reason, maybe it's also partially because the track title involves God and Lingua Ignota does a lot of religious references. But afterwards, we get the industrial guitars, soaring noise rock riffs with eccentric, intense spoken word, and inhale, exhale, etc. Animals eat animals, etc. Animals fuck animals, etc. And it just builds up to this noisy, climactic blur that is the ending, and it is really impressive. Didn't like it in the beginning, but this track grew on me a lot. Then following that, we have Reiterations, which is a noisy, crushing intro leading up to a dreary track with dejected, breathy vocals, at times weepy, at times on the verge of a nervous breakdown. One of the best things about this album is that the lead singer really pours his heart out and sound as unhinged as possible, almost like Isaac Wood from BCNR. The track gets a little repetitive, but overall it's still really impactful, especially I love the lyrics about creating art. Then we have Privilege of Being, which is a 5.5 minute long drone track with glitchy, smudgy, schizophrenic noise. It has the shuffly bells and guitars and the detuned accordion. At least that sounds like accordions to me. Some compressed, maddening vocals. It really reminds me of Phil Elverum off of The Glow Part 2, the title track. It just has that I'm literally having a mental breakdown in front of the microphone energy to it, which I really love. And the string outro is really beautiful. And that leads up very smoothly to what is potentially my favorite track off of the entire album, Margin for Error, which is a 24.5 minute long epic monster track. Right off the bat, it has the first 12 minutes of the track is essentially this really slow, patience-testing organ buildup, and it really has the same vibe as Swan's "Helpless Child." And the track sort of expands further into this insane post-rock drone track. It has a really enormous sound with flinging hi-hats, chomping drums, swirling strings. It's so dense, it's so epic, and it gets so cinematic near the end, and it just becomes the most impressive track off of the entire album. Despite the fact that it's a little bit derivative of Swans, it's still incredibly crushing. Then we have the second half of the album, starting with the commercial Nude, which is an 11-minute long track with insane noisy rambles in the beginning, then some simple acoustic guitars and glitchy bits. And I guess one main thing with this track is that it's just two swans. It sounds good, but it is just 101 Swans. It sounds like a track off The Glowing Man, and the second half of this track sounds like Bring the Sun. So I don't know, maybe I'm just connecting dots a little too much, but this is just so derivative of Swans. Following that, we have the Reclining Nude at 13 minutes long with the sad pianos and the gloomy guitar riffs. On this track, the lead singer repeats the word idiot, 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 and it goes from sing-songy to mumbly, out of breath, and it's so depressing, and unfortunately, it's so relatable because a few years ago, goddamn, I had some self-doubt. It's so unapologetic and pathetic, it's actually amazing. In a lot of ways, this track is like Zero's New Battery, but schizophrenic, so there's that. Following that, we have We Think So Ill of You, which is the shortest but also the heaviest and most aggressive track on the entire album. Lyrically, it is about self-hate and the feelings of worthlessness. In a lot of ways, this is like the Sprain's version of Daughters, The Reason They Hate Me. Similar shortness, similar aggressiveness, similar pummelingness, except I guess this track is a bit more loose when it comes to the drum beats, but even so, lyrically, it is comically dark and absurd. The last bit of the track shows that essentially the lead singer is in a talk show and everyone in his life are the members of the talk show, and the talk show is playing videos displaying all the sins that the lead singer has committed. Sort of like the last scene in Beau is Afraid. Finally, the album ends off with God, or whatever you call it, and it is another 24-minute track. It is huge, and this track largely centers on cynicism and doubt, and it is so much more structureless and chaotic than the other 24-minute track on the album, and also not as strong musically. The second half of the track has a bit more lyrical focus, where the lead singer sings about the lamb, how he's having a conversation with the lamb, and how the conversation goes a bit like this, and how the conversation goes a bit like that. But as he sings the track, he gets more and more frustrated, and it just and the track becomes more and more dense and horrifying and abstract. The track starts breaking apart. Like, there are bits on the track where it's just a cappella, where it's nothing but the lead singer singing. There are huge chunks, like minutes long, of silence in the track where the lead singer literally steps away from the microphone to have a nervous breakdown or something. And the last bits of this track is amazingly crushing and revelating and huge. It really feels like we've gone through an entire journey. Lyrically, it's still very abstract, and it's definitely has the religious elements to it, which makes this track so much better. Yeah, musically, I wouldn't say it's a great closer or anything, but it is certainly a very interesting way to end off the album. So yeah, overall, I really like this album. I think this is definitely one of the most interesting albums of the year so far. I love noise rock. I'm a huge sucker for noise rock, so I'm really liking this one. It is, at times, very derivative of other bands. Daughters, Swans, Lingua Ignota, a little bit of girl band, or Gilla band, you name it. But still, I hope whatever they come out with next is even more stylistic and even more unique. I'm giving this album a strong 8 out of 10. So have you listened to the new Sprain album? Comment below, let me know, subscribe if you want more, and thanks for watching.